Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 41 of Rise Up the Podcast. We had just gotten done with week 10 of the PLL season out in Seattle. Pretty cool location, some great games. We'll break it all down for you. We have a very special guest on this episode, absolute legend of the game, legend of the sport, Casey Powell. So we're super excited to get into conversation with him later on in the episode, so be sure to tune in and stick around for that. But, fellas, before we get into this recap, I'm back on with Greg Grenlian and Dan Alexander, also known as Newbie Talks. Fellas, how we doing? How was your week?
Well, I'll tell you what, when you were just giving the intro there, I was like, there's no way in hell he's saying Newbie's coming on here after you're talking about legend in the game, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, it's the dude who drives to Hoboken to place bets. Oh, and by the way, we got a Powell brother coming on. But as always, boys, I'm pumped to be here with you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm fired up too, man. And, last week was a little under 50% on my picks. So looking to get back to my normal rate, but this is why we enjoy the PLL, because just when you think you got it figured out, you don't.
I took it on the chin a little bit too, but fellas, I had a big weekend. I got engaged last weekend. So,
yes, you did. Sandbagging,
yeah.
Son of a bitch.
So big step, big weekend.
Congrats,
I know
man. That's
when
huge.
we were on here talking about
Amazing.
our picks, I was sweating out some other things, if you know what I mean. But
Well, hey, a lot of people are going to make jokes. Don't listen to any of them. I can tell you from experience, marriage is easy. It's simple, and everybody gets along. And then when you have kids, it gets even easier. So enjoy it, man. It's all smooth sailing from here on out in your life. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, it was a great weekend. My parents came down from Boston. My brother came down, had some friends and family out, and big celebration. So it was a lot of fun. It was, I think some would say it was overdue, but we had a great weekend.
Good for you, man. Onwards and
Cash
upwards.
is the first ticket, man.
I can't wait for
no bad beats in the weekend. Only the parlay that you reverse swept. But other than that, everything was smooth
Everything was
sailing.
good.
Yeah,
and we're gonna have a hell of a bachelor party sponsored by Rise Up. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, we'll have Healy on the back end, start selling some sponsors for it. But yeah, fellas, I mean, the best part about this weekend, the games being Seattle, is I got done with dinner on Friday night, was able to come back and watch the games. Got back from the bar at 10:30, 11 on Saturday night. Was able to pop the games on and enjoy it over a couple sodas post game. But let's get right into these games. I had advertised the first game of the weekend, the Archers Whipsnakes, as the kind of the premier game of the weekend, and Archers just really putting their fist down and saying this is our year almost. 16-11 win. I know we were kind of hemming and hawing on this game a little bit in the preview last week. I mean, was this just all Archers all day? What did you guys see in this?
I felt real confident about the money line and the Archers on this, and I've been saying it for weeks now. Like, I will take the Archers money line against anybody right now. They're playing even better. And when you watch the Archers play at least this past weekend, it's like they're playing sixes. I mean, they are sprinting up and down the field. Right off of the opening face-off, they lose the face-off. They force a turnover right back the other way. They had so many reverse transition opportunities, and they're riding like bandits. So they're just playing faster than everybody else right now. And that offense is humming, man. They get into their offense in seconds. And by the way, Ament looks healthy and dangerous.
Finally.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've seen him really at quite peak performance, because it's always a little nick here, a little bit there. And sure, it's not like he fills up the scoring sheet. Although last weekend, one of my favorite bets heading in was a little plus money chicken. It was Grant Ament to go over a half goal. All we needed the dude to do was score. He scores the first goal of the game. I'm feeling good. I'm like, I'll cash this ticket, and then the whips will come back into it. The comeback never came for the Whips, guys. I mean, this Archers team, and here's the thing, is there's always this narrative about how they're fraudulent or whatever, you know what I mean? We're at the back end of the year, they always find a way to end up losing it. I never subscribe to that. I think that's just the nature of the PLL. But this year, more than ever, we have not seen utter domination. Like, you look at that 28 scoring differential. They're not just beating people, they're beating the brakes off of people. Yeah. They have the leading MVP candidate. You could argue they have the best pole that's playing right now in Graham Hossack, what he did last week, because it wasn't just the offense.
Graham Hossack,
that defense, guys.
Savage. And also, you know who doesn't get enough love in this entire league? I think he's the most underrated person in this league right now is Dobson. Dobson, not only does he save, but he throws 20-yard laser outlets that lead immediately to 4-on-3 transition. So this whole team, top to bottom, like I said, I think, the fraudulent thing was actually had to do more with the fact that they could never win faceoffs in the playoffs. And faceoffs don't matter anymore. So it's
true.
Literally, it doesn't matter. They started the game off 0 for 4 on faceoffs, and they were just flying down the field. Didn't matter.
I was just going to say, I didn't expect Peter Gausau to have so much success in this game, and that's what I thought when I was watching this, because I was on Whip's money line. I was like, you know what, they're winning faceoffs, they'll get back into this game. But, at halftime, 10-2, turn it off. I know there's comebacks in this league, but it just was domination.
Yeah.
And,
Sisselberger did what he did the last time around. He went ape shit in the second half, and it ended up being a 50-50. But, like I said, we're actually seeing, we'll talk about it more in some of these other games, winning faceoffs actually hurts you right now.
Yep.
And every time the Whip Snakes won a faceoff, they'd get a scooped ground ball, they'd have a short clock, Hossack would come in like a monster and turn it over, and then the Archers were on a 4-on-3 break, and it just kept happening over and over again.
And I'll tell you what, you mentioned fraud, and I think that's our Archers team's past. Like, this isn't your dad's Archers.
Yeah,
this team has a complete, total makeover. And really, I think
the whole core of that team is gone except for Schreiber.
Schreiber and Amend? Yeah, I think so. And they are really just clicking. And we've been on them from the start of the season, and they haven't let us down. I mean, Greg, you're talking about betting a money line every game. You'd be making a lot of money if you've been doing that.
Yeah.
I still
don't like $10 at a time because the money line is drastically in their favor.
I'm not counting the Whips out. You can't count them out. I think Krebs, the rookie or second year goalie, had a little bit of a back to reality game. I think he was playing really, really well, and he just was getting bombarded this game. I don't know what the status on Bernlohr is. I don't know if they're going to have him back for the playoffs. I'm not positive on that, but I think that could be a difference in looking at the Whips from here on out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and even just the positivity that having that guy brings. But if he does come back, like didn't he break something? Like that's just Iron Man status. If he ends up finding a way to get back this season, but it's not like they lost that game because of Krebs. You know what I mean? Like
no, I know.
It wasn't what was happening with the goaltender. It was just utter domination.
Every level of the game, the Archers dominated.
Absolutely, yeah. But no, yeah, that was, high scoring, a lot of action, not as competitive as we would have liked it to be. The next game of Friday night, way more competitive. And this was, what a game to watch. Game of runs, back and forth. I thought in the first half, this had the Atlas's name all over it. And they came out firing. Chris Gray might have played his best game of the year. The way he was scoring goals, the way he was taking over the game, I was like, holy shit. He's always been a superstar, but this was almost even emergence to that next tier.
Yeah. And this is why I was hitting myself, because I was like, +1.5. Why am I not taking the Atlas at +1.5? Like, they're in every single game, and they have really differentiated themselves from the Chrome, who generally get pumped. So the Atlas have been in almost every game they've played in. So that difference between 8th and 9th place is pretty drastic playing wise for me. Let me ask you guys this question, because I never thought in my entire life I'd ask this question. Is the fact that Trevor's going 95% a game actually hurting the Atlas right now? And I ask that question because every game he goes 30 for 31 with 150 ground balls, a goal or two. And in this game, there was one face-off win by the Cannons, and they actually had more time of possession.
I saw that stat, and it definitely blew
like
my
the
mind.
PLL had the balls on the broadcast to put him up there as like an MVP finalist. I was like, shut up.
Well,
why are you doing it to this guy, man? Why are you doing that to this guy?
I'm so well trained into the mindset in the camp of if you have the ball, you're going to win the game. right?
Yeah.
Like you can, and you really just don't see. It's turning me upside down. Seeing
Yes, I
someone
know.
win 95% of the faceoffs. If it was a college lacrosse game and you win 95% of the faceoffs, you're winning the game by at least 5 goals. And I don't
Well, in
care if you
college
get
lacrosse, if you win 90% of faceoffs and you are better than the other team, like you're a top 10 ranked team against an unranked, you win that game by 20 goals. If you're an unranked team and your guy wins 90%, it's the great equalizer. That's what's awesome about it, and it makes it a good game. But yeah, I mean, I hate asking that question because it breaks my heart that the faceoff means nothing. Like, I don't even, after this show, I'm not talking about faceoffs anymore the rest of the season. Because
Dan, what do
it
you-
just doesn't mean anything.
Shouldn't Atlas, all they should do is just keep watching film on what the Archers do on fast break? Because when the Archers are unsettled, like, they don't care if they have 30 seconds, they don't care if they have 5 seconds. Somehow it's bing bang boom in the goal, shot off.
So here's,
you think at this point in the season that the Atlas would have a game plan, knowing that Trevor was going to be this dominant, knowing that there are going to be teams like the Cannons that punt on it, that you have more of a plan of attack. They look, I don't want to say clueless, but they don't look like they have a planned offense for when they scoop, when they score, and they have a pull.
You're absolutely right. They look completely disoriented, and even when they put two offensive wings out there, they get crushed in reverse transition.
Yes.
If you go back and watch this game, the entire game, the Cannons were lose the faceoff, pressure, and then back the other way, and that's how they got most of their scoring opportunities. By the way, I just want just a little sidebar on this game, dude. The officiating, dude, what are we doing? There was actually like a 2-minute phase in this game where a Cannons player or an Atlas player gets cross-checked loose ball from behind. The ball goes out of bounds. They give it to the Cannons. The Cannons go the other way. They get blatantly ice pick check tripped at the midline with all the eyeballs in the entire world on it. No call. Then they throw it into the crease and score while the defense had 7 players on the field. I was like, dude, is this ULAX? What is going on right now?
We don't hate on you.
Hey, don't besmirch those ULAX guys. Those guys are out there sweating hard, bro.
That's me.
Dude, but I'm just like, yo, can we pay these guys better or something? Because I mean, this is atrocious.
I mean, there was a bunch of times with the announcers almost sandbagged the refs, where it's like, oh, 7 guys on the field again, but they missed it. And
I was screaming it at my TV. Yeah,
dude,
like I didn't have a dog in. Well, and it would be one thing if it was just like, oh, well, this is how it is in the PLL. You know, it's played, but then there's those games that you'll see that do get crazy ticky-tacky, and there is a call on everything.
Look, I'm all for letting them play. I'm all for letting them play. I would rather a ref let us figure it out and just call the egregious stuff. But this is starting to look like Summer League, man.
The two things that stuck out to me, and which is why I believe the Atlas lost this game, was the Atlas clearing the ball and those kind of greasy, dirty goals the Cannons were able to put away. I think Charlene Beatty's had a hat trick all off of rebound goals or broken clear goals. And then the other thing was the 2-pointers, one being Kate Van Raphorst, which is just thorn in the side to the Atlas, and then the other one being Drenner's with, I think, 3 seconds left in the third quarter. They just kind of let him step in from 12 o'clock, time and room, hands-free, no one was on. And what the broadcaster said, which I kind of forgot about, was that you can't hold the ball in the PLL to retain possession for the next quarter.
Yeah,
and they reiterate that. They're like, you got to know that they're going to shoot it. They're not just going to hold it. And it almost like the Cannons lulled them to sleep a little bit, and Drenner buried one.
You know what? It's like, I mean, obviously it's not an effort thing because they play their asses off. It just seems like they don't have the details figured out. It's almost like every other team is practicing 3 days a week and the Atlas are not. Because it's like winning the whistle doesn't really happen with this squad. And I feel like if they tightened up those tiny little details, then we would be talking about a team that's in the top 4. But it's just every game, those little details are either forgotten about or they're neglected. I will say this, shout out to Miles Jones, who seems to have a fire lit under his ass.
Absolutely.
Because he's taking it to the rack fiercely right now, and it's awesome to watch. So good for him.
Dude,
that new
speaking of
scenery
someone with
helping out.
and speaking of someone with a fire under their ass, wasn't that CVR that Kate Van Raphorst shot? there was something behind that. That was a fuck you shot.
A lot of pain
I mean,
behind
dude, he
those
shot.
eyes.
He shot. What city were they in before they went to Tacoma? Because he
Denver.
shot that shot from there. Dude. That was unreal.
Yeah, that was like circa 2013 Hartzell shot right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
that was.
felt-
Oh yeah, you guys probably shouldn't have let me walk.
Yeah.
Shot.
And
is
I
what it
felt
looked like.
so terrible for Concannon on that because it was stick side high and he got a piece of it and it just one of those ones you really think about the next day and it good goal, but I don't think that's a high percentage shot. The fact that it went just a backbreaker, absolute backbreaker. But yeah, I mean, still I said this last week. Put some future money on the Atlas. I think they can play with anyone. They can play with anyone. The way Chris Gray played, Dylan Malloy's getting in the mix.
They need one more week of training camp, and then this team is a serious contender. Just focus on some details. Figure it out. This team has everything they need to win a championship.
Yeah. I mean, and Saturday, moving on to Saturday, we had another very tight game, overtime game. Chrome showing some fight against the Redwoods. The Redwoods needed this, I would say. But
they needed to cover. That's what they needed to do.
Yeah, another 1-goal game in the PLL. We didn't see it too much this season so far with the Chrome, but they showed some fight. Wisnauskas got back on his horse after kind of having a little bit of a lull of a season. He drops 4. They definitely play with some passion, which was great to see.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because this was usually a home run for the Redwoods to cover. But this way, and also this might have been the first game that I've seen this season where the Chrome did not have more turnovers than their opponent. So it was all right there. I just think at the end of the day, we talked about this a little bit before. Is this a case where things were coming together, they were playing well, but that extra energy may not have been there in the back of your mind when you're dead last in the league and you have nothing to play for?
But doesn't it add up too that even with that in the back of the mind, the Redwoods still had to go to overtime to get this win. So while some people are looking at it like, oh my God, back-to-back overtime wins, this is amazing. Like, I'm looking at it and saying, okay, the Redwoods got the Cannons in a perfect spot. They had to go to overtime against a team that this was their last moment, and it still took overtime to beat them. So talk about placing futures. I wouldn't be putting any futures on this Redwoods team because I think you're looking at a situation where they're just going to be happy to be there. I'm just happy. I came on here a couple weeks ago, and I said my over 4.5 total wins on the Redwoods was dead, kaput. They weren't going to win another game. They took back-to-back overtimes and cashed that for me. So I need nothing else from the Redwoods. They're stay away from me. They cashed me my ticket.
The OU for this game was 22.5. And I had that. I had the under, and I also had Redwoods winning by 1.5 goals. So when they went to overtime, I had this whisper of a dream that someone was going to bomb it too and win this thing in OT. And man, I would have leapt out of my chair.
Well, Romar tried that 2 weeks ago. And speaking of Romar, we touched on Miles. Romar, the change of scenery helped him here. He drills classic vintage Romar-esque on the run 2-bomb. He seems to be like the only one in the league that can do it, which is awesome when it goes. It's great to see him get one of those. And then, this Redwoods team is interesting. I know we'll touch upon the preview for next week. They have the Atlas. We'll touch upon that later. That's going to be a great game. But let's wrap up our last week Seattle recap with the final game of the weekend, Water Dogs Chaos. This game I felt like was a lot closer than a 13-8 win for the Water Dogs.
It was just that first quarter, man.
Yeah, and it was the 2-pointers. And it was the 2-pointers. And my biggest takeaway from this game was the Water Dogs meticulously selected their shots to beat Blaze. And that's what you have to do to beat him. He's such a great goalie. The shots that they were just picking corners and going pipe in and really not settling for maybe a 50% shot and really generating good looks, and that was the difference.
They had 60 more passes, the Water Dogs, in the game. 60 more. That's astounding. And they won 15% of the draws, and they had half the amount of turnovers as the Chaos. So I mean, they were very selective on their. They were banging the ball around, and that's what I love about watching this team. Man, they spin it. I would say the Archers and Water Dogs spin it faster and harder than anybody else in the league. And you're right that they are built to beat the Chaos 4 times out of 5, the way they play the ball.
Yeah, and again, to your point you made earlier, Greg, it's like, all right, Nick Rowlett, another dominant job at the stripe, and for who? For what? You know, you go 0-5 to start the game, and also we talked a lot about, redemption arcs for some of these guys with Miles and Romar. I don't know if it's as much of a redemption arc, but it just, as a guy who loved Caraway coming out of college, seeing his reemergence on this team and how well he fits in with that offense has just been an absolute treat, because I never understood how he could continue to not break through on that Atlas roster. So I knew he had the skill to do it. I'm just glad to see he's finally doing it for this Dogs offense that, honestly, their offense looks just as good as when they won the championship last year. Maybe even a little flashier.
Do you guys think this is the best midfield group in the PLL?
Oof.
With Caraway, Conrad, Kelly, Courier.
It's hard to argue. I want to say that it should be the Chrome's midfield, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like, when the proof is in the pudding.
It's hard for me to vote against any midfield that doesn't have Tom Schreiber on it.
The equalizer.
I will say this, goaltending-wise, it was a war. I mean, both of them showed up, and this was a Canada versus USA rematch. Both goalies over 65% and 17 saves. I mean, that's really awesome stuff.
Well,
and like half of those saves were by Dylan Ward's sweatpants alone.
I know it.
So you know what I mean? Like those deserve a stat sheet of their own.
Well, Newbie, I also love your point about Caraway breaking through and kind of finding a spot. Greg and I talk about this all the time. The PLL is a league where it's a right fit for players and teams, and in a lot of cases you get great players that get stuck on reserve squads because coaches like the lineups that are in, or someone's playing well, they're going to stick with them, or certain players have past experiences with certain coaches, so the coaches lean towards them. And you do have to kind of find your spot, and once you get that opportunity, you stick with it. I thought Caraway played awesome when he was with the Archers, and now he's back playing with the Water Dogs, and I know how competitive of a kid he is. He's not going to give that spot away. I'll tell you that.
Hell no, and nor should he. I mean, again, like I said, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, it's about time, and I'm just happy for him, on a personal level, that he was able to find it out. And to your point too, with that being right fits, like, dude, you could take so many of these reserve players, add a new team to the PLL, and they would compete right away. Like, the talent is just absurd. Yeah. So hopefully sooner rather than later we'll get another team.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I mean, fellas, that kind of brings us to the end of our Week 10 recap in Seattle. Anything else you guys saw or anything you want to touch upon? What did you think of the location, the baseball field? I thought that was interesting. You loved it?
The actual venue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a baseball stadium.
It looked like a lot of people were slipping on the grass. Maybe
I would have rather seen them at the Sounders Stadium.
Yeah.
Well, dude, you saw it even at the end of the first 2 games. I was messaging people. I was saying, hey, I know that the games already are going to play to unders tomorrow, but look at the condition of the field. Like, it's already getting torn up, and I just thought that alone was going to play to some unders. Both the games, for what it's worth, end up going under on Sunday. So
I went full unders this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And you were a happy man for sure.
Very happy.
So I was with you. I like the idea of it, and when I was playing football, we did something. It was like a series that was in a baseball stadium. It's a cool experience, being out there. But as far as the field conditions, as a bettor, I loved it.
Yeah, and the stands are in a weird spot. I remember. My son and I go to see the NYCFC matches that are at Yankee Stadium, and they're just weird.
Yeah,
they're like an awkward distance away. Yeah, I don't like it. Get
off my lawn.
That's why I asked, because I thought the angles were weird, and it's just it's an interesting. I don't know. It was kind of cool, but kind of weird. But next week we're back in Salt Lake City, Week 11, the finale of the regular season. We will get into those previews of next week's games, some playoff implications, and what we're thinking. But before that, we're going to turn it over to a very special interview with Casey Powell. So without further ado, welcome Casey Powell to the show.
The GOAT.
Welcome back, everybody. We have a very special guest joining us for this week's episode. Casey Powell, he needs no introduction, member of the Hall of Fame All-American at Syracuse University. One of the most prolific families in the sport of lacrosse. Someone who's definitely blazed the trail for the professional lacrosse players of today. And without further ado, welcome to the show, Casey.
Thank you. Great to be here. I look forward to chatting with the Beast and Dan the Man.
Yeah, Case, where are you at right now, man?
I am in Delray Beach, Florida. I just got back down to South Florida after a long summer. I hadn't been here since Memorial Day weekend. I've been out on the lacrosse trail, and I'm just unwinding for a couple days, trying to relax, trying to chill, and then get back to work.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy how much you've kept your motor going since you retired. And actually, to be honest, it was kind of an inspiration for me because I know, like, like when you think about retirement, you're like, oh, I'm just not be playing anymore. But you don't realize that you have like this identity crisis when you're done playing, and you're like, who am I? This is how I've identified. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Playing is one thing, but I've always been in lacrosse, and I've always explored as many opportunities as I possibly could. I said, when I was, getting out of college and had some endorsement opportunities and pro leagues were starting up, and I was just so intrigued by everything and the opportunity to learn different things and go in so many different directions and routes. And that's what I've done. I've explored a lot of different angles. I try to get into a lot of different things that I continually enjoy. I still deal with the not playing part and, being recognized in a different way, but that's cool too. And so I've really enjoyed that, but I've really loved the opportunities that lacrosse has provided and continues to provide. And there's still so many different avenues to stay involved and be effective and make an impact. And that's what I continually try to do.
Yeah, are you still lacing them up at Placid or what?
I laced them up last year and I popped my Achilles tendon. So I think I'm done. So it's been a long year, and it was a year, and all my buddies like, you're suiting up this year, right? I was like, no,
Dude.
I'm not.
I just had this conversation with somebody who's asked me how. They're like, how have you never played at Placid? And I was like, look, man, I've been injured so many times, but at least somebody else was paying for it. And if I go up to Placid and I do the same thing you did, like pop my Achilles or break my arm or blow my knee out, no one else is paying for that shit, and my kids aren't going to care. They'll be like, yo, get up. We got to go. We got to go play.
Yep, absolutely. It's so funny. I was working in Chicago. I was running a lacrosse club there, insured, and then I transitioned back down to Florida, uninsured for a small time period, and that was part of the time period.
Of course.
So I was about 2 weeks short of getting my insurance back in, and so I think I paid $32,000 for my Achilles or something. I put on my credit, got some air miles out of it, but it hurt, man. It hurt.
So you're done playing, but tell us. Here's the first thing I want to touch on. Tell us about beach lacrosse because I'm obsessed with it. I think it's such a cool thing.
Yeah, I started speed lacrosse when I retired, and I looked back and reflected. Why was I successful? Why were my brothers successful? Why do I love the game so much? Why am I so passionate about it? And it all reverted back to the backyard. The times back there, the amount of reps, the amount of fantasy, the amount of competition. We had unbelievable players in our backyard. Jason Coffin's the all-time leading scorer in collegiate history, and he's older. He would always pick the team, so I got to be on his team all the time. We'd play the younger brothers, but it was just an amazing environment that I was able to hone my skill. It was a laboratory, and as lacrosse continues to evolve and the clubs continue to make a impact on the players and where they're going and this and that, I wanted to try to recreate my backyard, and that's why we started speed lacrosse. It's similar. The court is 40 yards long, 20 yards wide, similar to the size of my backyard. The rules are similar. We formalized some of them and made them better and more proficient, but it's really it's backyard lacrosse, and our slogan with speed lacrosse is anyone, anywhere, anytime, and all you need is a stick. It's 3-on-3. You play without pads, and as you said, the beach is our favorite. Playing on the beach, no shirts, no shoes, but we also play in snowbanks and gymnasiums, tennis courts, grass fields. You can fit 5 courts on a regulation lacrosse field and have 40 people playing at a time. So it's one of my that's the lacrosse that I'll play. The non-contact, but still stick in my hand, and it's just as fun. So when you score a goal, it always feels good, and from my first goal to my last goal, it has that like feeling. And even when I'm playing speed lacrosse, you score one, whether I'm playing speed lacrosse in the backyard or in the national championship, it still has a similar feeling. It's a successful, and it gives you that joy for the game. So I love it, and it's being played in a lot of different places and a lot of different countries, and it's cool to kind of see it grow because that's what I hoped it would do. I hoped it would make an impact, and kids can go out there and just get after it like we used to do in the backyard.
Yeah, creativity. I feel like there was a time in our sport where creativity was a little stunted. I think like we got into these lanes of like you dodge down the right side, you pass it through X, like almost robotic. You don't shoot behind the back. You scoop everything with two hands. And I feel like the professional league, the MLL and now the PLL, have opened kids' eyes to the best players in the world do a lot of creative stuff. And I feel like, watching your highlights and then Lyle, it really spiced things up and people realize, look, this isn't showboating. This is getting your shot off however you've practiced it, using different angles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think players are certainly overcoached at times. There's a time and a place for everything. I pick up one-hand ground balls all the time. So do you, Beast. But there's a time and a
90%.
place. But there's a time and a place when you got to get down and take some contact or assure yourself that you're going to get it. But sometimes you might want to try to push in transition, and that one hand. If you don't pick it up with one hand, then you don't have that transitional opportunity. So I'm a big fan of encouraging kids to have the opportunity to create and create their own laboratory. And that's one thing about the clubs is they put these kids in a position and they make them play that position and they ride it up throughout the years, and they don't ever get to experience different opportunities and different styles. So if you look at all the best players in the world, they have that creative side and that creative style. And we see it every weekend, amongst the PLL with some of the great players in that league, and also the NLL. Those guys are, have been doing it for a long time and find ways to get it done somehow, some way, and that creativity is really what separates them from the pack.
That's such a great point. And what you touched on, I think a lot of our listeners are so used to what the PLL product is now. And you were present for the start of the MLL and really what pro lacrosse as we know it is today. Can you talk a little bit about that experience of kind of the starting of the MLL, and you had a illustrious career, and what that was like, and seeing that professional lacrosse product grow?
Yeah, first of all, it's really cool to see where the PLL is right now from where it started. I started playing in the 2000 Summer Showcase. There was so much excitement. It felt like, as a player, it probably feels very similar. We didn't know exactly what was going to happen in the future, but we were certainly excited. And, sometimes I hear things about, oh, you guys don't make any money. I would have done it all for free. I would have done it I would have played every single season for free. It's not a money thing. It's a passion and joy. But it was a cool thing to be a part of, to be a pioneer, to create, extend my playing career. I grew up dreaming to play at Syracuse, and I did that. And I thought, hey, this might be it, and I did it. I finished my goals, and then all of a sudden, this new opportunity came my way, and I was just so appreciative of it. Beast will tell you it's a huge grind. You miss weddings, you miss your weekend barbecues, you miss family time, here and there. But in the end, it's all worth it. And to have that opportunity to be at the top of the game and to follow your passion is extremely special.
Yeah, you said, people. I remember in the MLL, we always had this weird, awkward situation with fans, and it was always like the guys who played lacrosse in high school and college, like, I'm not going to an MLL game, and they would just hate on the league. And the big thing was like, oh, they don't make any money. And I always said, like, the only difference between me and a professional baseball player is that the guy makes millions of dollars, but I still get up and train exactly the same way as that guy.
No
So you're
doubt.
telling me it's less impressive for someone to give up all of that for less money and less pay, and take it just as seriously? And that always irked me, and I feel like that is a barrier that the PLL is breaking through. And I feel like they're doing a great job of messaging to adults, whereas the MLL always felt like it was constantly catering to kids, which is fine. But a lot of times, especially as you and I have got older in our careers, those were the kids that weren't around in the summer, because the summer lacrosse grind is so ridiculous now
Yeah.
that I remember Joe Spallina's own kids wouldn't be in the stands.
Right.
What do you think that the PLL is doing that's helping market to the adults?
Well, I think they're understanding that it's important to market to everybody, and I think that the entire lacrosse ecosystem has completely grown up and almost flip flopped. So,
Great point.
these guys back in the day that used to watch me now have a 7-year-old kid, and they're educating their son or their daughter. Hey, like this is so and so, and this is what he did, and I used to watch him play. And and I think it's only going to double down again in another 10 to 15 years. So I think the whole ecosystem of lacrosse, the fan base is growing. It's becoming more legitimate, and the professional leagues are doing a great job of catering to that growth. And
I
making it
totally agree with you, man. I got I'm getting my first taste of going to run clinics, and the dads are the ones like this,
I
and the
know.
kids are all like, "Dad, who is this guy? Oh, he's the one that I showed you on YouTube." I'm like, "Oh, life comes at you so fast."
Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah, they asked for an autograph, and it's like, oh, it's not for my son. That's a good point. That's funny. That you
So
say
tell me about, because you and I are both Team USA alums. Tell me about this past World Games. How much of it did you get a chance to watch? What was your impression?
I didn't get to go. I watched, some of the games. I really enjoyed watching the Haudenosaunee. I loved how they're continuing to make progress, and they had an awesome squad. I love how Canada always gets it done. I love how they always lose that first game, but then they come to play in the championship. They regroup. They have amazing coaching going on. And USA is USA, and obviously, it's the greatest honor in all of lacrosse to be involved with that. 20 of the best players in the world, and there's nothing better. There's nothing better. But the World Championships that I've been involved with, the best part of it for me is being around the other countries and these emerging markets, these emerging countries that are just as excited as we are about the game, if not more. For the future. So I love being around the dancing and the chanting and the different styles of dress and uniforms and the excitement and how they perceive us as U.S. players and have watched us and YouTubed us and heard about us and how they treat us. So for me, I thought it was awesome. I wish I could have went. I already had some camps going on, but just the excitement of the world is at a level that it's never been, and it's incredible. It's an amazing feeling, and going to the World Championships. I don't know where the next one is, but uh, I'm going to be there just to be a part of, as a fan, just to be a part of the hoopla of lacrosse.
Yeah, I really wanted to be there too, man. It broke my heart I couldn't make it happen. The one thing I always noticed, and I didn't realize it until I did it the first time in 2014. It feels like when you're at the World Games, it is a full-on party and celebration for every single country except for us in Canada, who are there on a business trip. Like we're sitting there stone-faced, just kind of like, you know, in our own little kibbutz, in our little hotel. We're all bunkered up. Everybody else is in the streets just partying and shaking hands and trading, swapping jerseys. I'm like, man, maybe I should just suit up for Team Armenia next time around so I get a taste of that, you know?
No doubt. That's what I mean. There's not a lot of pressure on them. The pressure's on USA, Canada, and they're there to enjoy it and, like you said, to celebrate the sport. They're smiling, they're laughing, and yeah, you're right. We lost in 2006, and we were stiff. We were stiff. We had no personality. We had no flow. We were tight. We weren't a tight team, because we weren't having fun. And
Yeah.
you got to have fun. You got to enjoy the experience, and that's really what it's all about. So it's fun to see, Jamaica, doing what they do, and the teams from Africa, and always great to hang out with the Australians. And there's, it's just a lot of fun to be a part of.
With that being said about the World Games, I know that there's a big push for the Olympics with the sixes, which is almost kind of hybrid between what we see in the PLL and your version of Speed Lax. So, what do you think about the sixes brand of lacrosse?
I've talked about this before. I've never played it, but I think it's something that I would have been really good at. I would have loved to play. My problem with it is it's not our game, and I don't necessarily like the fact that it's a worldwide representation. It's going to be a worldwide representation of what our sport is when it's not even our true set of rules.
Mhm.
I do think it's fun. I do think it's exciting, but I don't love it. It's going to cut out, roster spots. I talked about 20 of the best players. That's going to be down. So there's going to be 5, 6 guys that aren't going to be on the USA national team. There's going to be some stud defenders that aren't going to be suiting up. There's going to be some stud face-off guys that aren't going to be, suiting up. So there's going to be goalies that are getting shelled, with that style of play. So I like it. It's fun. I don't like it as a world representation of the sport of lacrosse.
I think that's very fair for sure.
I totally agree with that. I think I'm glad it's a version. I'm glad it's a type of. They never would have been able to do like World Lacrosse's version to get it into the Olympics. So I'm glad that they got a version of it. As long as college and at PLL and World Lacrosse have their own, keep it the way they are, I'm totally fine. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think what a lot of people, especially when they talk about the up and down pace, I actually had this conversation with Paul not too long ago of like, how fast is fast enough? Like, how fast do we need to make this until it's not lacrosse anymore? It would be like, watching sixes, the PLL version I was watching. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. But it's almost like basketball where there's a bunch of baskets. It's like, okay, yeah, clap, clap, you made your basket, get back on defense. Instead of the football where there's a touchdown and everyone loses their minds.
Yeah.
And I feel like lacrosse has that variation because we still slow it down. You score, you celebrate with your team. And sixes just didn't have that element.
Yeah, I've one of the rules we started with speed lacrosse when I started it was the when the ball goes out of bounds, it's not it doesn't matter if it's a shot or a pass, and sixes kind of adopted that into their game. I would love to see the celebration. My suggestion would be in speed lacrosse, after a goal you circle the net. My suggestion would be to take it to the end line and then bring it into play. Give us 8 to 10 seconds to show the replay. The excitement, have a little bit of a celebration, but hey, why not? You just get scored on, go take it to the end line. If guys need to sub really quickly and chance it, that's what I would suggest is a 10-second buffer. Still fast, but we still can have some cool celebrations, high five each other for the sick pass, chest bump, and then get back and play defense.
You got that. That's CP's certified favorite versions of celebrations right there. I love that.
I know. How much does it stink to, pot a sweet goal and not be able to, clap it up with your teammates and just.
Well, it was funny.
Hustle back into the hole.
I remember some of the guys in the PLL were bitching because of face-offs, and they're like, we should get rid of face-offs. So in the 2019 All-Star game, they didn't do face-offs for one of the quarters. And one of the guys who was complaining about it scored a goal and had to run right back on defense. And I'm just sitting on the sideline going, yeah, not what you thought it was going to be. No one gets to celebrate anymore.
Yeah. That takes away a little bit of it for sure.
So what's your plan now? Now that you're wrapped up summer, what are you doing? Like, first off, tell everybody, why Delray Beach? Why did upstate New York Casey Powell end up in Delray Beach?
I mean, you see that tan on him?
I know. It's amazing.
It was back in 1995. I was a college freshman at Syracuse University. I'd never been to Florida, and we came down here to play Yale. Coach Simmons brought us to the Delray Beach Marriott. We got in at like midnight, and I woke up the next morning like 6 in the morning, and I walked outside by myself, and I had this feeling, and I walked to the beach, and the air and the smell and the surf, and I was like, I'm going to move here someday. So that's how I've always been. I've tried to follow my feels. And this place has always felt right for me. So when I had the opportunity, I moved here. And it's a really cool town. I call it a bohemian surf town. And now it's a bohemian surf town with a lacrosse problem. So I'm all over it. But it's a really cool, chill town. Just getting back into town. My brothers and I own Powell Lacrosse Company. We make lacrosse sticks and uniforms. And we run events. We did 27 lacrosse camps this summer. And I'm the director of events, so I'm in charge of the tournaments and the camps and the clinics. Down here in Florida, I have an exclusive training service called the Powell Process. I have performance trainers. I brought down these 2 amazing performance trainers who have been. One of them trained Kylie O'Miller since she was in 8th grade, and went along with her. Still trains her, and he trains girls on the U.S. national team. And one day I went to a clinic and I saw him working. And it was so impressive that it was kind of the missing piece of what I was teaching, the motion and the movement and the paying attention. I teach a split dodge, but I don't pay attention and correct it all the time. And they're very corrective. And evaluative of each player, each individual player. So they've added a lot to what I want to do and how to build a lacrosse player. So tonight I was in Palm Beach training some players and at the Benjamin School, and we have pods in Miami, Delray Beach, and Palm Beach, and I kind of go up and down the coast a little bit, and we mentor them. We have an app, so there's a performance when they're not with us. When they're not with us, they're nutritional and training and things like that. So we've built this really cool system that I believe in. A lot of it is kind of what we talked about, the creativity, but also paying attention to detail, the non-negotiables, so to speak, and so we've combined that, and it's something I'm just getting into. We started about 6 months ago, and but when I look at all the training and the landscape of lacrosse, I think it's a big need. I always say it's not for everybody. You have to be obsessed. If you're obsessed with the game like I am, then let's go. So I'm focused and working on that, and like I said, just trying to catch my breath after a long summer of being on the road.
Man, that's awesome. So that's crazy. If John Galloway had Jacksonville U when you were getting recruited, it could have been a wrap. Would have been a very different story.
For sure.
One last thing I want to bring up is Syracuse, your alma mater, has had some changes in the past couple years. New coach, new 22 this year, who's did a phenomenal as a freshman. That's a program. I don't want to say they're on the rise because it's still Syracuse, but they're definitely getting back to where they once were. How are you feeling about that?
I feel really good about where they're going now. They had a little bit of a downslide, but I also, comparatively, when I was playing in college, the best players went to the top 6 schools, and now there's so many great players that they're going to the top 40 schools. So there's a lot of parity. I think the coaching's better than it's ever been. They're paying attention to detail. Sometimes overcoaching, and that hurts them. And we were never really overcoached at Syracuse and allowed to play freely. But it's a serious business these days, and everybody's working really hard at it. I'm a proud alum of Syracuse. It was the perfect place for me, the perfect style. I love playing in the Carrier Dome. I love playing for Coach Simmons. And, they haven't won a championship, I think, in 11 years, but they're fighting and clawing. And, watching Joey Spallina and company, what Joey did last year was super impressive. I think he's a great kid. I think he's great for lacrosse. He went up to Canada to play this summer, and I know I did that when I was in college, on my way to college, and it helped my game tremendously. And we're going to see a great year out of Joey. And I'll tell you, my brother Mike's the leading scorer at Syracuse. Brother Ryan and I are tied for number 2, but we might be sliding down a notch here in a couple of years.
Well, with the shot clock, everything's changing. We'll put some asterisks next to it.
No, man. It's just awesome because when you talk about like the top families of lacrosse, like Mount Rushmore families of lacrosse, obviously you have the Powells up there. When you look at it currently, I feel like the Kavanaughs are knocking on the door too.
The Curtis
and the Curtis.
Yeah, what a cool family. To watch them and how they represented themselves. I compare them a little bit to how we were playing wise. They're creative. They get the job done. But we were bigger. Maybe Mikey's not bigger, but we were bigger and stronger. But those guys might be tougher. So it's fun to watch them play, and I'm excited to see how they continue to carry on the new family torch. But yeah, that was impressive. I love Coach Corrigan. I was really happy to see Notre Dame win it this year. I jumped on the Irish bandwagon. I went to the Final Four and watched them, and it was really exciting. But it's cool to see new teams, new programs get the dub, win that title, and I'm fired up for 2024 season. See if those Nittany Lions can get
off the baby. Don't get me all fired up, man. It's late at night.
Let's go.
Well, CP, man, this was awesome having you on, dude. I mean, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Everything that you've done for the game as a player, everything you're doing for it now, man, it's just super respectful. And I love you, man. I'm glad that you got the chance to get on here. It's been an honor to having you on the show.
Thank you very much. I love you too, Beast. I love everything that you've done. You've been an unbelievable ambassador for the game, and I think you're going to make a bigger impact off the field than you have on. So keep up the great work. And Dan, thanks for the chat. It's been a pleasure being on this with you guys.
Yeah, this has been a blast. Super cool experience for sure. Getting to talk to one of the all-time greats in the sport. Make sure you guys, listeners, check out his World Lacrosse Foundation and his Speed Lax and all the great things he's doing for the sport now that his playing days are over. His lacrosse bug has still gotten him, so that's what we love to see.
You'll find me on a beach with a stick in hand.
Love it. Well, Casey, thanks so much for your time, man.
Thanks, guys.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back from that awesome interview with Casey Powell. Absolute legend of the game. Great talking to him, all that he's doing with the sport now that his career's over. Really cool experience for me talking with him, and I know him and Greg are buddies. So really cool time and just awesome getting him on.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking to the GOAT, man. He was one of the very first. I started playing lacrosse in high school, so he was one of the very first people that I noticed and heard of. And I actually saw him playing indoor the first time I watched him play. And I just still remember on grainy old PCs, Windows 95, seeing on AOL just clips of him from 16 yards out, catching a fast break, spinning backwards the wrong way, and just sticking a bottom corner on a fast break. I'm just whoa, what is going on here?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, we have great guests every week, and just absolute legends of the sport. But I think having him and then having a guy like Kyle Harrison on, guys that I grew up watching play, were just been really cool experiences for me. So
that's lacrosse royalty. That's a whole different feel. So
totally.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are doing. Next time we're wrapping up my segment before you bring on a Powell brother, because
Okay.
how am I supposed to follow that, guys? Come on.
Hey, you know how you can follow that? Give people the perfect picks for this week.
Yes, we want some winners.
No pressure.
And we have the last week of the PLL regular season on tap coming up this weekend out in Salt Lake City. The opening game of the weekend is Friday night, 8 p.m., Archers versus Water Dogs. Some people could say this is a preview of the championship game. Two teams that might be on a collision course. This will be their kind of first battle on their way to the championship. The line right now is sitting at Archers -1.5 at that -15 number, and the Archers money line is -160. Over under sitting at 25.5. Newbie, welcome back after the interview. I'm going to start with you here.
Yeah, and for this one, guys, I feel like I got to see who's in this game and who's out this game before I decide to bet.
Do you think the Archers will rest now that they have the 1 seed bye locked up?
I don't think so, because think about how many times does that happen, and I hate to liken it to other sports, but where you rest players too early. So, I think they have their guaranteed rest. However, does this game really mean much to the Archers is the real question, because the Water Dogs, we talked about this last week, how ultimately important it was for them to have that bye and to have the path that they had to win that championship last year. And I think there is still some space for the Water Dogs to pick up here, but I tried to be sharp. I tried to be the contrarian with you, Dan, and be like, hey, this is the time to fade them last week. It's a pass for me. I'll maybe bet this closer to game time, but the only way that I would lean in this is Water Dogs getting the 1.5 since they have something to play for. Archers already have it wrapped up, but I've been burned by the Archers way too many times. I'm not catching a falling knife here. Greg taught me that last week when he was like, I told you guys the Archers. I'm not doing it this week.
Archers money line every week. Greg, we sticking with that?
Yes, and here's why. I've been in this situation before. When I was the 2015 Lizards, we had it all wrapped up. We were way in front. We had 2 games left in the season, and we had the number 1. And I was considering resting because I was like, "Yo, man, I've taken 7,000 faceoffs. I could really use the rest." But the team as a whole was like, "No, we got to win these last 2 games because we need to keep the momentum." Now, here's the fun part: we lost those 2 games, and then we went on and won the championship. But I've been on this side, and guys don't want to lose their momentum. The other part of this, those are game checks.
Good point.
So
Good point.
You just want to sit out and lose, a couple $1,000. Be my guest. I don't think anybody on the Archers team wants to do that. And if you're the type of person who doesn't play because you're afraid to get hurt, then you're not a professional athlete because you can't have that in the back of your head at all times. So I think the Archers are going to go out. They're going to do their thing. Especially from a face-off standpoint, you want your face-off guy out there because you want him to stay in rhythm. Connor Farrell has been burned a little bit by taking a couple weeks off and then coming back in. So I just think I'm very strong on the money line with the Archers on this because I think we're going to get 2 starting lineups. And to be honest, I think with the Water Dogs prevent, the Archers are built for it because they play so fast. So the Water Dogs can't kind of reverse transition the Archers like they do everybody else. So, I feel confident with the money line on the Archers on this.
The last time we saw these two teams play was Week 7 in Dallas. Archers 19, Water Dogs 18, combining for 37 goals. The over-under's at 25.5. I mean, you got to hammer it, right? I mean, it's probably.
I think both teams are going to play loose because both
probably
teams
a trap,
have nothing to lose.
and I'm falling right into it. But I mean, for it to regress to the mean from 37 down to, that's a lot of room. So I'm playing the over here and rooting for both teams, rooting for goals.
Yeah, I think something correlated with that. I think there still can be a lot of goals, and Dylan Ward can go over whatever his save total is. So I think just because of the volume at which the Archers shoot, again, we don't have the numbers that I can look at right now, but something that's going to be on my card if it's 14.5 or lower is over Dylan Ward saves. At a number at 14.5, anything lower than that is a beautiful bet, but I like it all the way up to 14.5 over his saves.
I mean,
I think both teams are going to play loose because nothing really happens if they don't win.
Yeah.
Maybe the Redwoods can pass the Water Dogs and take the 3rd spot instead of the 4th. Who gives a shit? And I think because of that, both teams score plenty of goals. I could see this being a 14-13 type of game. I will not bet the spread. I will go Archers money line because it's the Water Dogs, dude.
All right, you heard it here. Next game on the night is 10:30 p.m. Atlas Redwoods. I think this is one of the more interesting games for me. I've been getting killed by the Atlas week in and week out. They're burning me. We will see a face-off matchup in this game. I think Trevor probably has the upper hand on that one. And
definitely. I mean, he is well over 60% career-wise against TD.
There you go. And right now we're sitting at, just looking at money line, Atlas are plus 100, Redwoods minus 130. I think even though the Atlas have been losing, they've been consistent. The Redwoods, on the other hand, what Redwoods team are you going to see?
I agree with what we're getting on all these lines here. Because I think plus 1.5 for the Atlas is a shoo-in.
At minus 140.
Yeah, at minus 140. I feel like that's without looking at that, I was like, oh, that's the absolute bet. I mean, Atlas are really good at losing by 1. The Redwoods are really good at underperforming against
and winning in overtime.
Subpar teams. And now if this was the Archers versus the Redwoods, yeah, maybe the Redwoods would win by 4 and screw our whole day up. But yeah, I think the Redwoods will win this game by 1. And I'm also thinking that I might go under on that 24.5.
All right. Newbie, I'm going to hear
what do you think about the OU on this?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds about right to me. Redwoods are an under team. Atlas this year have been an over team. You just look at these matchups that these teams have played. Surprisingly, is because these are 2 legacy PLL teams. They've only played 4 times since 2021, and 3 out of those 4 games they ended up going over. Again, that's with different rosters, that's with different looks. But I'm with you. If I'm betting something in this game, I'm taking that 1.5. I know you have to eat juice to do it, so maybe you wait for a live line and it comes down a little bit. But not only have the Atlas, been great as underdogs, the Redwoods also in their history have not been good when they have expectations. As a matter of fact, when they're favorites, they're 4-9 against the number at covering the spread. So history says you don't want to back them as favorites. They just went to overtime against a 1-win Chrome team. Don't fall for it. I don't know what the odds makers are.
They win by 9.
Them a 1.5 favorite.
I'll tell you what.
I'm with you, man.
I'm going back to the well. I'm betting Atlas money line again.
Money line.
And because you know what? They can't keep burning me. They have to win. And you know what? The definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
He's due.
I'm due. I'm due.
He's due for a win. He sounds like a guy who would drive to Hoboken to place a bet. That's what he sounds like, Greg.
One
He's saying
of
he's
us.
due.
One
I
of
just got to
us.
drive over the line. It's probably plus 105. If I get into Jersey, I'll get a better number. That's the way to do it.
God, I get such anxiety just listening to that.
I'll be up in Maine at my grandparents' house this weekend, so I don't know what the Maine regulations are. Maybe I'll hit a state on the way up and see if I can get.
Not a
some
bad
good-
idea. Pull over and the new
We're
fiance.
taking
will be like,
we're
why
taking
are we
a
stopping
cruise to
here?
Jersey on the way to Maine. Don't worry.
Yeah. Why are we going this way? Just don't worry, honey. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I like we have some different views on that game. I like your take, Greg, on the under. But let's move on to Saturday. Cannons Whip Snakes. Cannons have been on a roll. Whip Snakes, they're looking for something still. Whip Snakes, always dangerous team. They're getting a goal and a half at minus 150 juice. Money line, it's about even as we see in the PLL. The Cannons are minus 120. The Whip Snakes are minus 110. Over under sitting at 24.5. This is an interesting one to me, and I'm going to listen to what you guys have to say before I
You
kind of
might want to wait till after the Archers Water Dogs game to decide on what your bet is, because if the Water Dogs actually, you know what? It doesn't really matter because they're tied. So if the Water Dogs win or lose, the Cannons still have to show up.
Yeah.
So, for me, I think this is a real good game to get a little crazy and take the Cannons at 1.5. You're getting plus 120 on it. The Cannons are, in my opinion, just flat out, they're definitively second or third best team in this league, depending on the day when it comes to them and the Water Dogs. And that offense can put up a whole bunch of points. This is not the same Whip Snakes defense that we've seen. So yeah, I'm thinking Cannons. I'm thinking Cannons minus 1.5 is where I'm going to put my money on this.
Yeah, for me, I don't think I have a bet on the side. I don't think I have a bet on the total. Where I'm going to attack this game is a prop that FanDuel puts up weekly. Total 2-point goals. I think we're seeing two bombs in this because really at the end of the day for both of these teams, it's all about can we get margin. You know what I mean? It's all about the scoring differential if they are going to jockey for any position. We talked about earlier just what the Cannons adding the 2-point into their game has made them that more explosive offensively. You look at the Whip Snakes, they just whipped 2 goals last game. Again, it was because they were trailing a little bit, but at likely it's going to be 1.5 over or under. This matchup also averages 2-point goals per time they meet each other. It might be a little bit chalky, but I think we're going to see 2 bombs in this one. So my play for me, we don't have the number on it, but I think it's going to be 1.5. I'm going over total 2 point.
Oh, I love that.
Getting fancy with us. I love it.
I have to. I
yeah,
have to. It's
no,
the
I
last
like
week of the
it.
season. We got to get a little exotic, you know?
Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. Salt Lake City, this is where the bubble was, right?
This is where the bubble was, I believe, yes. And
Yep.
This is also where Holman spent plenty of years.
And is Salt Lake City an altitude city like Denver is? It is, yeah. So I mean, are we going to see some fatigue? You think in these games?
These guys are in lacrosse shape now, man.
Yeah.
No.
All right.
That's what I tried. I tried that trend last year. I was like, oh my God, they're playing at altitude. It's the end of the season. They're going to be burnt out. I think every damn game went over. I don't have it in front of me, but I tried that, Dan.
Yeah,
I
dude,
tried
I'll
it
tell
the
you
first
from
night.
experience, the only time you feel the altitude is if you're not in shape.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to, when I was playing the ML, you don't want to go out to Denver and play the Outlaws week 1 on the road. You want to be in lacrosse shape, and if anything after, week 4 or 5, you're good to go. These guys are going to be just fine.
Yeah.
There you go. Not a factor. Last game of the weekend, 9:30 p.m. Chaos versus Chrome. The lowest total of the week with 22.5. That's the trend we've been seeing with the Chrome, just because they really haven't been putting up many goals. Chaos at minus 1.5. They're minus 130 juice. The money line, they're minus 180. That's a pretty hefty price to pay to take the Chaos money line in a team that just took the Redwoods to overtime. But this is what actually I meant to touch on earlier. We just saw a trade this week before the deadline. The Chrome dish Jackson Morrill in a pick their third round pick to the Whip Snakes for a 2024 second round and a 2024 third round pick. Back to the Whips a little bit. Is this them loading up for the playoffs? And then on the flip side, what are the Chrome getting out of this here? Besides just, I guess,
Chrome are probably seeing what they're going to try to create next year. Yeah. I think that we're going to see a way different Chrome team next year. I think making moves to get picks. Look, they have to win by 17, and the Atlas have to lose by like 15 for them to.
So you're saying there's a chance
for them to sneak their way into the playoffs, okay? I think that they're preparing for next year. Yeah. And I think you can either sit on your hands and then try to make moves later, or you can get out in front of stuff now and feel like you're making some kind of progress, even though it's still the end of the season. And I think it was a great move on both. I think both parties got what they needed here.
Agreed.
I'm more in the camp where I don't really love this trade for the Whip Snakes. I think, to your point, this is one of the best, probably, college classes in all time coming out of professional lacrosse. With the amount
of
up
draft capital.
Yeah, they gave up a second and third round pick, man.
And where does I think next year, this is totally a little bit off topic, but we're going to see next year a ton of players making impacts that go undrafted. That's how good of a class this is. So, and to me, for the Whip Snakes, I don't know where Jackson Morrill fits in, right? That attack line is pretty solidified of Rambo, Zed, and Manny. And then,
unless somebody's dinged up that we don't know about.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Unless, maybe somebody's got a bad wheel and they've been playing through it and they need a break. Either way, I'm taking the under in this game. There almost isn't a number that I won't take the under right now with the Chrome.
But that's a pins and needles bet. You're watching that whole game with holding your breath.
Puckered up.
Really. Yeah. Not really. It's just me cheering on Blaze, which I love to do.
Okay, fair.
It's just Blaze is like one of the few guys where I'll just sit and watch a whole lacrosse game, and every time it's a save, be like, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Electric for sure. Yeah, I think, I'm glad you bring up the trade, Danny, because for me, this trade told me way more about the Chrome the final week of the season than it did what the Whip Snakes were trying to do. You know what I mean? To risk being like Carrot Top, waving the white flag is what it looked like for me. You know what I mean? So I don't think I have ever come on this show, or I don't think I've ever went really anywhere and advocated laying a goal and a half in the PLL. You got a pissed off Chaos team. They don't care whether it helps them in seeding or not. They just want to beat somebody up. And this Chrome team, I'm not saying that they're rolling over. I'm not saying that, they're giving up organizationally, but they are now coming off of the Dream Crusher, where they gave it all they had. They end up going to overtime, and still the same result happens. And now you ship off a guy who, as a leader on and off the field. I just think the Chrome, this is the heartbreak spot, and who likes a broken heart is Andy Towers and that team. They will fucking stomp all over it. So I'm laying the goal and a half with Chrome here, or with Chaos. I think it's just a slam dunk spot. It's like almost too obvious, so I'm probably going to get bit in the ass, but it's the only play that I can make here.
I'll tell you what, I'll ride that one with you. Hopefully right to the cashiers.
It's gone so well for us so far.
Yeah, I know.
We're both on the same side. So.
I know.
Yeah, I'm still worried. The Chaos still, they underperform. They're not the old Chaos. And I'm going to go with the under on this because I think Blaze we're going to get playoff Blaze. And then I'm going to take the money line for the Chaos because I do think they'll win. But I think it'll be, I'm looking at like a 7-6 game here.
Well, if we think Archers get it done against the Water Dogs and Chaos get it done here, but we don't want to lay much juice doing it, is that the parlay? We take the 160, we take the 180, and we take the juice out of it. I'll see what it ends up being, but that could be a solid bet.
I like that. I like that as well. I tried to go for the pay for your weekend parlay last week, and it didn't work out.
It didn't go well.
No.
So if you parlay those together, we get plus 152. Chaos money line, Archers money line. I'm not a big parlay guy, but that one makes a lot of sense to me.
That makes a ton of sense.
I love that.
It's
No,
bet
I
as
think
we speak.
I'm not doing it, but
Live
it makes a
bet.
ton of sense.
Live bet. I'm locking
Yeah,
it in right here on the show.
that's why we bring you on the show. You just thinking outside the box, hopefully making us money. But no, I love that. And I think that is a good play, especially, I mean, if you want to play a couple games, but you don't want to risk that juice and pay the price of taking those teams money line. Yeah, I love that move. Yeah, fellas, the last week of the season, I think I don't want to say things are sorted out because the middle is kind of jumbled, but we do have our playoff picture. We know who's going to have the bye, and the rest will sort itself out. Going into the playoffs, as we round out the show and we finish off our picks, is there any trends or are there any specific things we think viewers should watch out for when these teams are coming down the playoff stretch?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the trends that I loved riding just year over year was taking teams as underdogs just against the spread. But this year, more than ever, like favorites have been dominant. So I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this is now the third full season that we've had with PLL lines offered. Every single game, the odds makers are going to get a little bit smarter, are going to get a little bit sharper. They're going to have more season-long data to get these rock-solid lines like they have in some other sports. So this year, in a year when favorites have gone 21-11 against the money line, and then as far as the spread goes, underdogs are just 17-15. Trends are starting to become a thing of the past in this league, and it was something that made me money year over year. So they're a good starting point for you, and you can always hit me up on Twitter at Newbie Talks, and I'll run the numbers for you and let you know what the numbers are. But the numbers are becoming less and less important because the odds makers know what they are, and they didn't know what they were the last few years. So it's making a huge difference for sure.
Yeah. No, you're right. The plus 1.5 was the safest bet on earth for a couple
free
years
money.
There. Yeah, free money.
It was a 65% bet. If you closed your eyes, took underdogs against the spread, you covered it at over 65%. It's now dropped down to 62.5%, and that's largely because this year it's almost a 50-50 split.
Wow, that's great stats. I feel like we had Keegan on for a second running those numbers.
This is the only math that makes sense to me is gambling math. You ask me to add, and I have to use my fingers. You ask me to calculate a spread, and I can pop it out like that.
I love it. Well, like I said, this is the last week of the season in Salt Lake. Then we have quarterfinals up in Boston. We have semifinals out in Long Island. And then we have the championship in Philly. I wanted to ask you this real quick as I was looking at the schedule today. Why is there that week off in between the semifinals and the championship? Is for guys to rest up, or is there any other reasons why they do that?
Yeah, I think it's
thought
the
for
rest
me
up.
could be TV.
It could also be is that Labor Day weekend?
Labor Day weekend is the quarterfinals. Semifinals.
Yeah, they have it on Labor Day. The game is on the Monday.
Yeah, Monday, September 4th. Yeah. So September 24th, Sunday is the championship in Philly. So the Eagles won't be playing in Philly, I guess. Or maybe they are. I know they play at the
It doesn't matter. It's not. I mean, I hope not, because that'll be a shit show traffic-wise. Now, although they say Philly, it's actually in Chester. So
Correct.
You're at the Union Stadium. It's in Chester. It's close to Philly. It's not quite Philly. So it shouldn't be affected that much other than your I-90. As long as they're not playing like the Giants, and you don't have to deal with that I-95 traffic.
They'll be down in Tampa Bay. The Eagles are in Tampa Bay that week, going 3-0 on the season.
Monday Night Football.
So they'll be down there going 3-0. So that's what
there you
they're
go.
doing.
Newbie's got the almanac. He's good to go.
I guess no rhyme or reason. Maybe
I rode
it's,
back with Biff. Yeah.
But fellas, another great episode. That's episode 41 in the books. Is there anything else you guys want to leave the listeners with before we take off?
I appreciate you guys for having me on again, guys. And an incredible interview, too, with Powell. I can't wait to listen back to that one. Awesome job, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
man. I think we're fired up for a finale here. It's been I can't believe we're talking about the last game of the season. Crazy.
I know it. Newbie, thanks as always for joining us and chopping it up on this episode and giving our listeners the inside scoop and the sharp lines for the week. And like you said, Greg, I can't believe we're rounding out the regular season. I feel like me and you were just talking about the draft and the end of the NCAA season, and here we are. Best part of lacrosse is NCAA playoffs and now the PLL playoffs, and hope our listeners are enjoying it as much as us. But be sure to tune in next week as we recap the season as a whole. We'll get into some playoff matchups and talk about our favorites for the championship this season. And be sure to, if you're listening, subscribe on Apple, subscribe on Spotify. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to that TorchPro YouTube channel. And that is episode 41. We will catch up with you guys next week.
To the booth.